The what if train rolls on tonight. What if these things happen this season? We're going to start in the ACC. What if Florida State starts 2-2? That is a preseason co-favorite to win the ACC there. That's one of the playoff dark horse right in the broad daylight darlings out there. Well, Grant asked, what if they start 2-2? Now, Grant is insinuating they lose to LSU and they lose to Clemson. And bam, first month of the season, they're sitting there at 500. Assuming that they beat Southern Miss and Boston College. And we're going to make that bold assumption here. So you got to remember the expectation. The expectation here is the over-under win total is 9.5. Like I said, they have aspirations of winning the conference, maybe Jordan Travis, fringe Heisman contender status. They want a lot more than just bowl eligibility, and a lot more is expected of them this year. Here's what would happen in this scenario. If they start 2-2, it would be a tidal wave of I told you so. Because there are a lot of people who are detractors, who doubt Florida State, who look at how last year went, and they look at this wave of momentum that started to build and this bubble of hype that started to build at the end of the year, and they're saying, but who did they really beat? Which is one of the most tired arguments in college football. But it does matter. It does matter. It's just a case-by-case thing. It shouldn't be a broad consensus-held opinion. And they would say they played 3 ranked teams last year. They lost all 3 of them in the middle of the season. Then they beat some trash at the end of the year, and y'all got worked up about them. We tried to tell you. You installed them as your favorite to win the ACC. You picked them to go to the playoff, and here they are 2-2. Don't you feel stupid? Well, maybe they have a valid point. I would remind them, if this were to happen, it would happen before the month of October has even arrived. And so here's what I think would happen. I think it's possible that it actually does go down this way. These are 2 extremely losable games. They're underdogs in both of the matchups. So point spread wise, they actually should be 2-2. But let's just say they are, okay? What's happened there? Yes, you probably have lost out on a playoff shot, but the whole world would then look away from you, most of them would, and you would be written off, and then you would actually be able to get to work, and your schedule would significantly lighten, and you'd come out of your bye week, and you'd realize, wait a second, we only have 1 conference loss. And it's not division format anymore. So they take the top 2 teams regardless. So we're not getting boxed out just because of a head-to-head loss against a division foe. Let's go play for the ACC championship. Oh, maybe, by the way, Clemson's there, and we atone for that loss. And who knows? Just because we hadn't had a 2-loss team make the playoff doesn't mean we can't. I think the ACC would still be within reach, and I think they may still be a very good team in that scenario. Or they get blown out 49-17 and 38-13, and it's a disaster. So, not all 2-2s are the same, as Meemaw would say. I think she was talking about line dancing, though. I digress. We move on. Here it is. You guys didn't go playoff. You didn't go conference championship game. You flat out said, Marcus, what if Texas wins the national title? Well, the world would implode. As you know it, the world would implode. Look at my fingers. Look at the nervous energy as I start to even contemplate this. Oh, by the way, we have burnt orange liquid in the chalice tonight. Coincidence? Yeah, probably. But I'm going to say I think not. If Texas wins the national championship, it would be unlike anything you guys in high school or younger have ever experienced. Most of you in college were not old enough to remember what the world was like when this was the case, because the last time they won one was 2005. And when that happened, it was what many call the greatest college football game of all time out in the Rose Bowl, Vince Young in Texas over Matt Leinart in USC. But you got to understand what a world where Texas is on top feels like. Texas is like one of very few programs, and Texas folks would tell you there is no other program like them. They have almost like the aura of an English Premier League soccer club. Like they're so much bigger than a Texas Tech or a Baylor or a TCU. The brand, it reverberates coast to coast, Seattle to Miami to New York to LA. You walk through airports, you throw up the Longhorn logo, and people know what it is. And if they actually started to fulfill on the always present immense potential of, forget about the team, the program and the brand, you would start to hear that word a lot, by the way, brand. Oh, people love to throw that around when an established brand reestablishes itself. Whew, brand. Well, that would be the case, and also they would be essentially a rocket ship being fired into the SEC. They're already recruiting very well. They already don't have a problem convincing quarterbacks and elite skill perimeter talent to come there. They've recruited on the lines of scrimmage very well. If they win a national championship and you can't negatively recruit against them anymore by saying, Sark's never proven anything, man, they're selling you hopes and dreams out there. We've got the hardware in the trophy case. If you can't use that against them and they get to package up Austin, Texas, and the ability to win titles and get developed, and oh, by the way, there's an entire NIL machine in place out there, it's kind of hard to say no. So Texas, if they won one, man, it'd be hard to screw that up. And I think there would be multiple trips to that college football playoff in the offing. Next up, you remember last year, where were you when the selection committee announced the Final Four? Or the year before, for that matter? Well, Roy hit us up and he said, what if we get another college football playoff Cinderella? I would have advice for you if this happens, Roy. I would say enjoy it while you can. It would be the last time you've ever seen one. Because we have an expanded playoff coming up, which people think is going to be a utopia for these sorts of things. In reality, your hopes and dreams are going to go straight up Hindenburg style in an expanded playoff. But for all the talk about how we're going to open up the world to more Cinderella possibilities, need I remind you, if this were to happen, you would have had a final 3 years of the 14 playoff that saw Cincinnati go to the playoff, TCU go to the national title game, and whoever makes it this year. And I'd be sitting there watching revisionist history tell me, oh, it was the same 4 teams every year. Even though, here we are, nearly a decade into the playoff, and the same 4 teams have never made the playoff twice. You hear what I said? For all the folks out there who tell you, oh, the same 4 teams make it every year. It's literally never happened. Any 2 years, not just back-to-back, period. There's never been a year where 4 teams made it and another year where those same 4 teams made it. And yet, the lies continue. So, Roy, if this happens this year, I'd golf clap the heck out of Kansas State. I'd root for them. I got a text from one of their folks today. Good people out there in Manhattan. Hope to get out there again this year and see them. It will be infinitely harder to pull that off in the future, so enjoy it while you can. Lastly, this would be a little treacherous. Devin said, what if USC's defense does not improve again? I think there would be wholesale defensive staff changes if this happened. This is not inside intel. It is a semi-guided opinion that I think Lincoln Riley went in there in year 1, and they massively improved the overall fortunes of that team. It takes more than one recruiting and portal cycle to stockpile yourself defensively, and that's if you recruit elite defensively. They haven't recruited elite defensively. They've gotten better. And the transfer portal, you go get a guy like Anthony Lucas and Bear Alexander, yeah, those guys walk in and they're instantly more impressive than anyone on campus. Hopefully you can add depth behind them. But if it doesn't improve this year over last year, I think you'd be looking for a new defensive coordinator, maybe a new defensive staff. And I think that while a lot of people would laugh at USC if that were to happen, there's a world where USC falls short this year because of defensive shortcomings. Lincoln Riley makes changes folks thought he should have made even at Oklahoma, and they're better for it. And people who have to play him every year end up looking back and saying, wow, I wish they would have been a little bit better, just enough to keep that defensive staff in place. It's a funny world. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. USC might suck defensively, and Lincoln Riley may pull a lever out there and may just dump his defensive staff, and all of a sudden he actually gets a defensive hire right, and you look out there and say, wow, USC with above-average defensive play. And Lincoln Riley and all those quarterbacks, 3 of the last 6 Heisman winners. He's developed. He's coached. So, yeah, we're going to have to wait until the back half of the year probably to see how this unfolds for them. But, yeah, I think there would be changes. I think there's one more year of leeway to play as ineffectively as they did last year, which is totally fair. And if it doesn't improve, I think there'd be changes. That's what I think.